can there. There we go. So that's our law firm. We're in Manhattan, as you see, and we're also in Westchester County. And we can serve people all over New York State. Most of our clients are in the New York City area and close-in counties, Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, Putnam, Rockland. So let's start with Medicare. I know everyone's heard of Medicare. You're eligible for Medicare if you're 65 or over and have contributed through your payroll deductions for 40 quarters, or if you're disabled. So someone who is disabled and who qualifies for Social Security disability, after 2 years you can get Medicare at any age. So Medicare is medical insurance. It pays for hospitals, it pays for doctors, other providers, therapies of all kinds, PT, OT, and so on. It pays for rehabilitation. And here's a particular point I wanted to make to you that I think turns out to be a trap sometimes for people, is Medicare pays for up to 100 days of rehabilitation from an illness or injury. And I find that so many people focus on the 100 days and forget about the up to. It's like looking at one of those advertisements for a sale, and they have in great big letters, 50% off. And then in tiny little letters above it, it says up to 50%. So it's kind of like that here. You need to be aware that it's up to 100 days. So let's say, you had an accident or illness of some kind, you spent a couple of days in the hospital, you're discharged to maybe a nursing home or a standalone rehabilitation facility. You don't have 100 days. You have up to 100 days. It may be much shorter. And at that point, you're going to be discharged to either long-term care in a nursing home or sent home with home care. And now, all of a sudden, it's on you to pay for that. And it costs a lot of money. So beware of this rehab issue under Medicare. Medicare comes with co-pays if you have traditional Medicare. So there are all kinds of supplement plans that are available. They've all been standardized with different letters like Plan F and Plan N and so on. AARP, for example, offers a whole array of supplement plans through United Healthcare, and most of the major insurance companies offer supplement plans. Good idea to think about a supplement plan if you have traditional Medicare. There's also so-called Medicare Advantage plans. That's Part C. You don't need a supplement plan if you have Medicare Advantage. So it is an advantage in that sense. On the other hand, it's in-network only. So you need to be comfortable using the doctors and providers in the Advantage network that you subscribe to. And good idea to check with your own doctors and see what insurances they accept before you get into an Advantage plan. You may find that your doctors don't accept the plan and you're forced to move over to other doctors. Now, here comes the big area that Medicare does not cover and does not pay for, and that is long-term care. So if someone has an issue of activities of daily living, getting out of bed, getting dressed, getting bathed, cooking a meal, those kinds of things, they're called activities of daily living or ADLs. You may need an aide in the home. Medicare is not going to pay for that. So you can see on the slide who does pay. You can pay for it yourself. Most people cannot afford that unless you're really very wealthy. It's pretty hard to self-insure against long-term care costs. Part of the reason is they're high to begin with, and the other part of the reason is, by definition, they're long-term. So it's every day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 50, 12 months a year, and so on. And it just goes on, and the money's being spent like it's coming out of a fire hose. So it's very expensive. The other options are long-term care insurance and Medicaid. I'm not going to spend much time on long-term care insurance today. It is available. Not very many people have it. It tends to be expensive. And if you do look at long-term care insurance, you want to make sure that you're buying enough insurance, because the problem that I see so often with clients who have long-term care insurance is the benefits are too modest and they're not enough to cover the cost of care. So if you have a cost of $400 a day and you have $100 of insurance, my question is, where is the money coming from to pay the difference, to cover the gap? And if the answer is, well, gee, I guess I'll have to take it out of savings, that's not a good answer, because the whole idea of the insurance is to protect your assets. So if you have good income, whether it's Social Security, pension, distributions from retirement plans, whatever it is, and you're the kind of person who's able to save money every month out of your income, maybe you can couple that with an insurance policy that makes sense. If you need your income to cover your living expenses, you would need to buy a fair amount of long-term care insurance, and then it becomes very expensive. So that's kind of the short tour of long-term care insurance. The other program that covers long-term care is Medicaid. Medicaid is a little different, actually a lot different from Medicare. It's easy to confuse the two because the names are so similar, but they're really quite different programs. Medicare, as I've already said, is medical insurance. It's paid for by the federal government. It's funded by payroll deductions and premium payments that you make through typically deductions from your Social Security retirement income. Medicaid is a program that is joint between the federal government and the state governments. So in the Medicaid program, you have federal law and state law, you have federal money, and you have state money. And it makes a big difference where you live, because every state has its own Medicaid program under its own laws, and its funding is really significant here. And the differences among the states are dramatic. Among all of the states, though, in the entire country, New York is the most generous and has the most friendly laws. And when I say we're the most generous, we are by far the most generous. We spend in New York, compared to many states, something like 25 times per capita. The differences are really huge. And that also means that New York State has a lot more facilities because the money's here. So we have more hospitals, more nursing homes, more assisted living, more home care agencies, more providers because there's money to pay for it. And traditionally, New York State has really been the leader in the Medicaid area. It does make a difference, and the laws are different too. Our laws are, I think, I don't know if friendlier is, it's not quite a legal term, but it's the one I like to use. We're friendlier to seniors and to people who are disabled. We make our benefits more easily available to them. So let's look first at community Medicaid. And I think the best way to think about Medicaid is in two big areas, community Medicaid and nursing home Medicaid. And I break it up that way because, as you'll see a little bit later in the presentation, the rules are different in terms of your eligibility. So community Medicaid, what it covers and what it doesn't. So there you have on this slide a list of what's available in the community Medicaid program. You know, probably the biggest part of it is home care. That's what I think most people want to try to stay in their own homes as long as possible. We have a big home care program in New York State. Some of our assisted living facilities are open to Medicaid recipients. Bear in mind that assisted living facilities and nursing homes in New York are not government owned. These are all private businesses who have agreed to or not accept Medicaid payment. For nursing homes, about 99% of them accept Medicaid. For assisted living, a smaller percentage, probably, well, I don't really know the percentage, but it's significantly less. Then we have adult daycare programs. We've got programs for people with different diseases, whether it's kidney failure or other things. There's probably a program for you. And then, of course, medical care. Medicaid doesn't, on the other hand, cover financial advisors and geriatric care managers and lawyers and accountants. But big program, well-funded, fairly easy access, which I'm going to discuss now in a moment. So I wanted to give you an example that I'll use we'll work through this example and see what we're going to do to get mom on Medicaid. You know, let's say she was going along just fine, living in the home that she and dad bought years ago for a small amount of money, worth a lot more today. She's able to pay for her living expenses out of her income from Social Security and a pension. So everything's fine, except one day she slips and falls and breaks her hip. And so now she's got to spend some time in the hospital and some time in rehab. She comes home, she's a fall risk. She's not able to do all of those activities of living for herself. She needs help. She needs an aid in the home. So, can she qualify for Medicaid? Well, not right away, because Medicaid eligibility is based on her assets, what Medicaid calls resources. And in order to be eligible for the Medicaid program, you can have no more than $15,750 in total assets. So when I say total assets, I'm really thinking about financial assets. You know, nobody's going to look in your jewelry box or your stamp collection or tangible personal property. That's not part of Medicaid's assessment, but they will look closely at financial assets. So resources include, the obvious ones like your checking account and your savings account. Also includes things that are maybe not so obvious, like cash value of life insurance, possibly retirement accounts unless you're taking the required minimum distribution. So we need to look carefully at what financial resources you have, and don't forget that Medicaid is able to track all of this through your Social Security number. They know if something's missing and you've not disclosed a bank account or some other investment account. Now on the income side, income is not a determinant of eligibility. And a lot of people are confused about that and think, well, I've got too much income to be eligible for Medicaid. Not true. Eligibility is based on your assets. However, Medicaid does have an income limit. And if you go over the limit, in Medicaid parlance, you have surplus income. Not surplus to you, but surplus to Medicaid. And if you have an income surplus, then you have two choices. One, you can contribute the surplus amount of income to the cost of your care, which obviously you don't want to do, or you can join something called a pooled income trust. So the best way to think about the pooled income trust is think about it as another bank account where you're going to deposit your monthly income surplus. And once your money is in that account, it's still your money, but there are some limitations and restrictions that are placed on it. The main one is the money can only be spent on you. So you can pay your rent, you can pay your utilities, you can buy your food, anything for you. And it doesn't have to be just standard living expenses. You want a new TV set, you want an 80-inch flat screen with surround sound, it's your money. If it's for you, you can buy it. What you cannot do, however, from your pooled income trust account is spend the money on somebody else. So it might be a nice thing to contribute to your granddaughter's school tuition, but sorry, that's not allowed. It has to be for you. So there's a certain amount of logistics involved in the pooled income trust, but everybody gets used to it. It's a new way of spending your money. It works very well. It protects your monthly income. So looking at Mom's case, she's got $2,000 of surplus income. So unless she joins a pooled income trust, she's going to have to give Medicaid $2,000 a month. Nobody wants to do that, obviously. So we're going to look to a pooled income trust if Mom winds up applying for Medicaid. Now let's also notice that right now she's got savings of $220,000. She's way above the $15,750 limit, not currently eligible for Medicaid. So what can we do? Well, let's go to the next slide. What we can do is move that money somewhere else so that it's not Mom's money. And in New York, up until now, and for actually the next 8 days, we do not have what's called a look back. We've never had a look back in New York. Most states do have a look back. I think this is one more unfortunate consequence of the coronavirus pandemic, because New York State Legislature last April was looking for some ways to save money, and one of them was to institute a new look back for community Medicaid. So let's talk about what exactly is a look back. What it means is when you apply to Medicaid, you're first going to demonstrate that you have less than $15,750. That's the eligibility limit. But with a look back, you also have to show what you've done with your money prior to your application, because Medicaid wants to see whether you transferred or gifted money to somebody else, such as to a family member or to a trust. So starting on October 1st, Medicaid is going to institute, New York State's going to institute a 30-month look back that will be phased in. So this apparently is going to apply to applications filed on or after January 1st. So if you're asking on January 1st for Medicaid to start paying your home care expenses, you must disclose your financial transactions during the period that started on October 1st. And if you transferred money or property during that so-called look-back period, you would be subject to a period of ineligibility. That's what Medicaid calls the penalty period. So let's go back here. If mom transferred $205,000 or $210,000, and she did that before October 1st of this year, Medicaid would not see that transfer because the look back is not going to look back into September. But let's say she doesn't get her act together, and sometime in October or November or December, she moves money out of her name so that she can say to Medicaid, look, I only have $10,000 to my name, I'm Medicaid eligible. Well, at that point, Medicaid is going to look back to October 1st and see whether mom transferred assets after that date. And now it sees that she transferred $210,000 or $205,000, whatever the number was. And therefore, she is not going to be eligible for home care for a period of time. And we'll get to how we calculate that in a moment. But it's going to be quite a few months that she's not eligible. So we can see that what New York is looking to do here, which is to throw the costs of home care and assisted living care and other community care back to the patient and the patient's family. Things that New York State previously was willing to pay for. That's going to be subject to this period of ineligibility calculated under the look-back rules. So I'm going to talk more about this as we go forward. One of the questions that comes up is always, if I'm going to transfer money, where am I going to transfer it to? For Medicaid, it makes no difference whether you transfer money to a family member or to a trust, but there are other reasons that or other considerations you may want to look at before you make a decision. It's obviously easier to transfer money to a family member. On the other hand, that's now their money. If something happens in their life, your money is now at risk. If they have a liability, your money is exposed to their creditor. If they get divorced, it may be subject to the claim of their spouse, soon to be ex-spouse. If they die before you do, the money is in their estate, and so on. So there are risks that are really impossible to quantify when we make transfers to individuals. Those kind of risks do not exist when we have a trust. A trust can contain your estate plan. You avoid probate. Your beneficiaries receive assets at full market value, so they avoid capital gain taxes. There are other lots of good reasons to think about a trust. I don't think I have time to go into all of that this evening, but for someone who's thinking about transferring assets in a Medicaid context, you certainly want to get some advice about trusts and how that might or might not be a good option for you. So I guess I already talked about this slide here, the pooled income trust. In the example that I gave for Mom, we had a $2,000 surplus, and we would decide to put that money into a pooled income trust. So this is our year for New York to put in new restrictions and limitations on our Medicaid program that from the state's point of view will save some money, and from the individual's point of view makes the program and the care more of a challenge. So I already mentioned the ADLs, activities of daily living. If someone is asking for assistance in the home care, if you prove financial eligibility, now you're going to be assessed for or evaluated for what kind of care do you need and how much care do you need. And the assessment for home care will focus on the activities of daily living. Can you get out of bed yourself and move around your home by yourself? Can you dress yourself? Do you need assistance going to the toilet? Do you need assistance bathing? Are you able to cook a meal for yourself? Are you able to eat your meal without assistance? These are the kinds of things that are part of the evaluation to determine whether you need care in the home. So up until now, you needed to show that you needed assistance with at least two of the activities of daily living. Going forward, you're now going to need to show that you need assistance with at least three activities of daily living, unless you're a dementia or Alzheimer's patient. Previously, housekeeping was a service that Medicaid provided to those who were unable to clean their own homes and laundry and so on. That's no longer a service that Medicaid provides unless it's together with at least three of the ADLs. Then you can get some housekeeping. Your assessment of your need can no longer be made by your doctor. It's going to be done by an independent doctor who is on a panel prescribed by the Department of Health. So I think that's also an unfortunate thing, because obviously your doctor knows you, is familiar with your medical history, maybe specializes in the particular medical conditions that you have. And now you're going to be dealing with someone who's not familiar with you or your medical history. And we're going to have this so-called high need review panel that's going to look at whether you can safely be maintained in your own home. As most people want, you may hear that this high need review panel has decided that, well, you would really be better off in a nursing home, and we're not going to try to maintain you in your own home. So I think it's unfortunate, but these are some of the changes that we're going to see in our Medicaid program. But I would say to all of you that notwithstanding these changes that I've been talking about this morning, even with this, New York still has the most generous Medicaid program that you're going to find in any state in this country. And compared to most states, our program is by far more generous and better. Most of the states have always had a look back for community Medicaid. We've been a real outlier in that regard. And some of these other changes are, bringing us more in line with what many of the states are already doing. So I just wanted to mention that. We still have a great Medicaid program in New York. So I'm moving on now to nursing home care. Eligibility for nursing home is again focused on resources or assets. The number is the same, 15,750. That's 2020. This number changes a little bit year to year, but not by very much. So 2021, it may go up a little bit, but don't expect it to go up very much. It doesn't. On the income, on the income side, you're only allowed to keep $50 a month out of your own income, and the rest of your income goes to the nursing home. It's called the net available monthly income. You'll hear it referred to as the NAMI, net available monthly income. The only exception is if you have a spouse. And if your spouse is living in the community, you're in the nursing home, you may give some of your income to your spouse rather than to the nursing home, so that your spouse has enough money to live on comfortably in the community. On the other hand, if your spouse who's living in the community has a lot of income, he or she may have to make a contribution toward the cost of your nursing home care. So without getting into the nitty-gritty here and what all the numbers are, just be aware that there are protections available to the spouse who does not need care. And that spouse, if he or she is very well off and has a good income, you may need to contribute a little bit toward the cost of the care of the one who's in the nursing home. So now let's take a look at our look back in the nursing home context. If you apply for Medicaid nursing home care, which means that you want Medicaid to pay the bill. You can pretty much choose any nursing home in the state of New York with, a very few number of exceptions. But like I said, 99% plus accept Medicaid. So it really doesn't matter to you what they charge on a private pay basis if you're eligible for Medicaid. They'll be paid by Medicaid. So if you're applying for this benefit, you must disclose 5 years. Looking back from the date of your application, you must disclose 5 years of financial records. That's the look back. And again, Medicaid is looking back because they want to see whether you gifted or transferred money to others, either family members or friends or to a trust. And if you have done that, Medicaid applies a period of ineligibility called, again, the penalty period. A lot of people come to us and they're very concerned about these transfers. They fear that they're going to get in trouble, that they're going to get sued, or the person they gave the money is going to get sued. That's just not the case. Medicaid has never contended that it's illegal or improper to transfer money or make gifts. This is purely a question of eligibility. If you have transferred assets or gifted assets, the theory is, look, you're giving your money away. That's money that you could have used to pay your own nursing home bill. So why should we pay it for you if you're just giving your money away? So that's the concept. That's why they're looking at looking back, right? And the nursing home look back is 5 years. The community Medicaid look back is going to be 2.5 years. So 60 months for nursing home, 30 months for community Medicaid. Now, how do we calculate this penalty period, the period of ineligibility? What Medicaid is going to do is look at the transfers that were made during the look-back period and then divide that number, that amount, by the applicable regional rate. So the regional rate depends on where you live in the state of New York. And you can see it varies a little bit. I didn't put up the entire state. There are, regions for Western New York and other areas upstate, but I gave you here the regional rates for New York City, for Long Island, and for Westchester. So if we want to determine the period of ineligibility, what we're going to do is take the amount of the transfer or transfers and divide by the regional rate. So if we're in New York City, we'll divide by 12,844, and that will tell us how many months of ineligibility. So I think I put up here an example from my little example of mom. So if mom had transferred $205,000 in September of 2017, and now she needs nursing home care 3 years later in 2020, she has only $15,000 in her bank account. So nominally, she's eligible for Medicaid. However, the look back discloses that she made this $205,000 transfer. So Medicaid is going to apply a period of ineligibility by dividing $205,000 by the New York City regional rate. So here it is, 12,844. So we're going to divide $205,000, the amount of the transfer by the New York City regional rate, because mom lives in New York City, and we see that she is ineligible for 16 months. I hope everybody sees how this calculation is done. That's important. And these regional rates here are also going to be used for community Medicaid. So going to my same example, let's say mom transferred $205,000 in October of 2020, and then next year she asks for home care. She's going to be ineligible for 16 months. All right, so you can see what New York State legislature was up to here with the new budget, because that means that New York State is off the hook for 16 months of cost of care. So one thing that I want to say here about this look back and penalty period is, in many cases, really most cases, we can use a strategy that will reduce the penalty. And typically we can reduce it by 40 to 50%. So mom, in mom's case, she may be ineligible for a nursing home for 16 months. We may in effect be able to reduce her penalty period to 8 months. And it's a little bit of a complicated strategy. I don't think I have time to really go into it tonight, given the amount of time we have, but I just want you to be aware that even if you have money trapped in the look back or by the look back, it doesn't mean that you're completely out of recourse. There are strategies that are very effective and very reliable to save, again, 40 to 50% of your money. Okay, I guess one other thing that we wanted to mention today is something called spousal refusal. And you know, here is something that, again, New York is a bit of an outlier, and this rule was not changed when the legislature made the other changes that I mentioned. Most states are what they call spousal share states. So if one spouse is applying for Medicaid, the Medicaid in the other states in a spousal share state will look at the assets owned by both spouses in determining whether one of them is eligible for Medicaid. In New York, we only look at the assets that are owned by the spouse who is applying for Medicaid. So what happens if, let's say we have mom and dad needs care, and dad has a lot of the money in his name, or even if it's in a joint account. So what we might do is move all of the money out of dad's name and put it in mom's name. And in New York, that is fine. We can do that. There's no transfer penalty when for transfers between spouses. And the spouse who does not need care, which is usually called the community spouse, if that spouse is holding all the assets, the other spouse can get Medicaid. And these spousal allowances are the amounts when Medicaid, has no claim on these so-called resource allowances. If the community spouse now has money that is above the resource allowance, there may be a claim in the future for reimbursement. It's hard to predict whether that will happen. On the other hand, having Medicaid will still save money for the family because you get the benefit of the Medicaid rate. Dad might be in a nursing home that on a private pay basis costs $20,000 a month, but Medicaid's only paying $12,000 a month. So if Medicaid comes back at a later date and says we'd like to be reimbursed, they cannot ask for $20,000. They didn't pay $20,000. They can ask for $12,000, and that amount is probably going to get negotiated anyway. Well, I think I probably am going to stop here and take some questions. I don't want to get too far down in the weeds about the spousal refusal or really anything else tonight because of our timing, but I'd be happy to take questions from anybody who has one.
Yes, may I?
Do we have questions, Cindy?
Absolutely. Can I put it in? Should I put it in the chat?
You know what? You're muted there, Cindy.
Sorry, yes, you can go ahead and ask him in here.
Oh, okay.
No, you can ask him out loud because we can all hear you.
Okay, thank you. When you use the example of the person for 16 months with the home care, I didn't understand how you arrived at that with the home care. It said they donate $205,000 back in 2017. Wouldn't it be 30 months? Or I'm confused. Or was that just for the nursing home?
No, what I'm saying is that here I'm putting back up this slide that has the regional rates. Okay,
Right.
So the regional rates are what will be used to calculate the period of ineligibility.
Right.
The same number that will be used for nursing home Medicaid and for community Medicaid. So if you've transferred, in my example, 205,000 and
right.
you divided it by 12,844, which is the regional rate for someone who lives in New York City, you would get the number 16. And that says 16 months of ineligibility. And that would be either for community Medicaid or for nursing home.
Well, that's the part I don't understand because it's beyond 30 months. 2017 to 2020 is 3 years for the home care.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Well, what I'm trying to say is it would be 3 years. September 2017 to September 2020 is not 30 months. She's in the clear. If we were talking about these regulations now, she's in the clear. She did this more than 30 months ago.
No, well, this example, this example that I'm giving here is for nursing home.
Right, that's what
where you have a 5-year look back.
Right.
So if we're in September 2020 and we look back 5 years, we're going to see the transfer that was made in 2017.
Okay.
So Medicaid will say, look, okay, you have only $15,000 now in September 2020, but you transferred $205,000 3 years ago. and that falls
Right.
within our 5-year look back. And therefore, you are ineligible for 16 months.
Mhm. Okay.
David, I think what she's saying is that since if it was a nursing home, even though the nursing home, they use the same rate, that would have fallen outside of the 30-month period. So you would not be subject to the penalty period for
Right.
nursing in that
Right.
case.
If we're talking about community Medicaid,
Right.
if we're talking
So,
about community Medicaid, was
right.
my
So
question.
if this were an example of community Medicaid,
Right.
this 205,000 would fall outside the look back or beyond the look.
Right.
So Medicaid
Right.
would not see it.
Right. Okay.
All right.
I get
But
it.
but let's say that, let's change these dates. Let's say that the transfer occurred in October of 2020.
Mhm.
And then let's say that the need for home care occurred in September of 2021.
Okay.
So now we're only a year later and we have
Right.
30-month look back.
Right.
Then this $2,005 would fall within the community Medicaid look back.
And that's where you'd get your 16 months,
Yes.
dividing it by that magic 12,000 number.
Down here, which is the regional rate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, I think well, as I said, we're September 22nd today, and we're only 8 days away from when this new look back is going to start. Anybody who thinks that Medicaid might be in their future, this would be a very good time, although there's a short time window, but this would be a very good time to think about making a transfer of assets, because we still have an opportunity for the next 8 days to do that with no consequence under New York law. After that, transfers are going to be subject to the new 30-month look back.
David, you might
Uh-huh.
want to mention that the laws are not yet finalized. There still is some, because of the pandemic, there is some question about the exact timing of this. The October 1st date looks pretty sure, but there is still a possibility that it could change. And the home care regulations, there is still some question about whether or not they're going to happen on which date they're exactly going to happen. So I just don't want to have people feel that this October 1st date is absolutely cut and dried. If something happens, there's definitely you should talk to somebody and ask what the state of the art is, because there are still things that are unknown. And David, sorry, I see Virginia Fung has her hand up. So Virginia, I think, could you unmute yourself and ask your question? And sorry, Dayton J, I know you have another question, but let's have Virginia answer first.
And Myra has a question there also, I see.
I was wondering, does the period of ineligibility begin the date that the transfers occurred or the date of your application for Medicaid?
It starts, well, in the nursing home, it starts when you're in the nursing home and you are eligible, otherwise eligible, which means you have less than the $15,750. So it starts then. It does not start on the date of the transfer.
And with community Medicaid, I think there's some, that is one of the things about which there is still a little bit of question. It's supposed to start at the time that you are receiving the care, but there's some issue. I think there's some issues about how it works. So the community Medicaid, I think there is still some question about that.
Yeah, well, that's true what Cindy says. They're still kind of working out all of the implementing rules, but I think I would assume for the moment that the look back would start when you start, when you're otherwise eligible for services.
Thank you.
Okay, Myra, you had a question there.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering, is it a good idea to transfer, like I have a house and I heard that people that get own a house don't get Medicaid. I don't know if that was true in the past or not, but is it a good idea to transfer, put the house in my kid's name way before the 5 years look back?
You know, that can be a good idea, but that's a very good example of a situation where I would want to consider a trust.
Okay.
Because, you know, one day your children will inherit that house, and hopefully, like a lot of real estate, it will have increased in value, and hopefully significantly increased in value. And they will receive an additional benefit of avoiding capital gain tax on the increase in value that accrued during your lifetime. And that can be a really significant number tax-wise. So that's one of the features. And also, you know, if you put your money, if you put your house in a trust, nothing would really change in your life. You would have the right to live in the house for the rest of your life. You would still pay the bills. The only thing that would be different would be the name on the deed, which would be, instead of Myra, it would be the Myra Trust. So,
Okay. Okay.
you know, I don't want to. What I'm saying to you is, you should consider it. You know, we don't have time to go into all the details of it tonight, but that's a case where I would want to consider looking at a trust.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And you know, part of the reason for it is this, and why it's a good idea to think about a transfer, whether it's to children or to a trust, is you will hear a lot of people say that the home is exempt. I don't know how many of you have heard that, but it comes up a lot in the Medicaid context. People say the home is exempt. Well, you know, that's one of those things that is sort of a little bit true, but also a little bit not true. And here's the difference. If the home is your primary residence and you are asking for home care, Medicaid is not going to disqualify you because you are living in your own home and it's worth money. But we know that one day, sooner or later, that home is no longer going to be your primary residence, because all of us are going to die one day. You may move into a nursing home. You may move into an assisted living. You may move in with your children. So if any of those things happen, the home is no longer your primary residence. And when it's not, it's no longer protected from Medicaid. And Medicaid can and will put a lien on your home and look to be reimbursed from the equity in the home. So I can tell you that when we apply for Medicaid on behalf of our clients, we never leave the home in the name of the Medicaid recipient. It's just because we know sooner or later there's going to be a problem, and it's one that can be avoided.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so David, I guess John, it looks like John is next, and then Dayton, and then Obi has a question too. Wanted to know a little bit more about spousal refusal, but I guess, should we go to John next? John, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, how you doing? So my question is, you said you're allowed to transfer funds, a certain amount of funds, to your spouse. Now,
Yeah.
when you transfer those funds at that point, does that amount go into the look back, or there's no look back because it's an allowable amount?
Well, what it is, the transfer would be seen. It doesn't excuse you from complying with the rules regarding the look back, but it's not a penalized transfer because it's money that went to a spouse. So even though Medicaid sees it, the fact that it went to a spouse means that it's not subject to that penalty that we were discussing.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi. I should have renamed myself. My name is Jackie Dayton. The Dayton J is just, anyway, really quickly, the pooled income trust, the lawyers don't do that. There are various firms that do it, right? And are they held to a law? I'm on a caregiver support group, and while it wasn't a pooled income trust, it wasn't even in New York State, somehow she arranged for a bank to pay bills for her mother, and they didn't. They didn't pay her rent, they didn't pay her insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do we keep them honest? Which are these firms? Who are they?
Well,
Some trust.
in New York, first of all, there's no requirement that you have a lawyer when you join a pooled income trust. Most of our clients who are applying for Medicaid ask us to advise them and assist them in setting up their pooled trust account. There are a number of trusts, I'm not sure how many, maybe 10 or 12 that operate in New York State and that are authorized by New York State. And, the ones that we work with have been around for many years. They have thousands, if not tens of thousands of participants. Frankly, I haven't heard of that kind of problem. I can't think of a single case among our clients where we've, seen a pooled trust in effect steal the money. I mean, that just doesn't happen. They're all licensed. The money is sitting in a bank account at one of the major banks. And I don't know, that sounds like a very unusual circumstance. I really haven't heard of that.
Like I said, it wasn't in New York State, it wasn't a pooled income, but I guess you know that you're talking legals and we're talking emotions and everybody's biggest fears when it comes to their money, that they're no longer in control of it.
Well, agreed. And, that's one of the issues that always is a feature of medical
Right.
planning is giving up control. But, you kind of have to do that if you want the benefit. There's no other way. So, the choice is, you can stay in control, but you're going to spend your money and you're going to spend a lot of it, and you may spend all of it trying to pay for your health care. And if you want to have the benefit from Medicaid, then, you're going to have to let go a little bit. And, we have not seen or even heard of any issues with the pooled income trusts. And, even with the asset protection trusts that we use, where we're putting typically a family member in charge of it as a trustee, I'd be hard pressed to think of a case where we had a problem there either. Obviously, if you're setting up a trust and you're you have to appoint a trustee or trustees to manage it. You want to think about someone who's reliable, who has your best interests in mind, who is stable and reasonable, and doesn't have a shaky marriage, doesn't have a lot of debts, doesn't have a problem with drugs or alcohol. I mean, those are all kind of obvious. You're going to pick someone who's a reasonable person of integrity who has your best interests in mind. And I think that, when you focus on that issue, most people are able to pick someone who's very appropriate to fulfill that role. I can't hear you, Cindy, if you're talking.
Sorry, Obi had a question about spousal refusal. So can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, can I find out a little, can you tell me a little more about spousal refusal? Is it, okay, the common assets we have, my spouse can, for example, will be able to sign it over to me, right? But
Yeah.
where is the refusal that I don't,
Where is the what?
where does the refusal come in?
Oh, well, the refusal is this. Let's say your spouse, your husband needs care, and he has more money in his name than would allow him to be eligible for the program, for the Medicaid program. So he transfers his money to you. All right, so now you have your own bank account or your own investment account, and he has given you all or almost all of his money and his investments, right? So he applies for Medicaid, and he asks Medicaid to pay his nursing home bill or his home care bill. Medicaid is going to say to you, well, look, Mrs., you're the wife. Why don't you take care of your husband? And
That's assuming that, well, he signed over the money, right?
he signed over all the money to you.
What if there was no money to sign over and it's my money?
Well, that's fine. If he has less than $15,750, he's eligible for Medicaid.
So will that be spousal refusal if I refuse, for example, to sign over, no, to have them, will Medicaid come to me for money for him?
Well, it depends how much money you have. If you're over the spousal allowance, they can say to you, listen, you're the wife, why don't you take care of your husband? All right, so what's different in New York from most states is you can say, okay, I understand, but I've been taking care of him for years. Now it's your turn. I refuse. Okay, that's spousal refusal. I refuse. I'm not going to make my money, my income, my assets available to pay for his care. Medicaid, it's on you. That's spousal refusal.
So that it's possible and they'll accept that?
It's possible to do that. In fact, Medicaid, it's such a common strategy in New York that Medicaid has its own form. Oh, you're refusing? Here, sign the spousal refusal form.
Okay.
Okay, so the one thing though that I want to be clear about is that it's not totally without risk, because if Medicaid does take care of your husband, they have the right to come back to you at a later date and say, look, we took care of your husband. You have an obligation here. You should have taken care of him. We did, and we paid for it, and now we would like to be reimbursed. So they do have the ability to do that. They don't always do it. When they do, typically those cases are settled, and they also are settled at a number that is much lower than what you would have paid if you paid for that care out of your own pocket. And that's due to the differential in the private pay rate versus the Medicaid rate, because Medicaid is always paying less than what the nursing home would charge to a private patient. The home care agency is charging less. The assisted living is charging less to the Medicaid patient.
Thank you.
Are you with me there, or did I?
No, no, I understand now. Thank you.
Okay, good. All
Now,
right.
will we be able to get more detailed information that's not your PowerPoint?
Who's asking me that?
Obi,
Oh, well, it depends. What kind of interest? What kind of information are you looking for?
well, just more detailed information about everything you've told us.
So our website.
Well, one place that I would highly recommend is our website. You know, we designed our website to be informative. It's not, you're not going to find any sales pitches there. You're going to find information, and we literally have hundreds of pages about all of the topics that relate to Medicaid and care and estate planning. So I think you'll find a very good source there of information. And
So I'm just going to say also that I don't know how often Jordan plans these things, but we could do another session, you know, sometime in the future if you're interested.
Yeah, I think that would be nice if we can manage that. That would be lovely. I'm sure there are so many other people through word of mouth who will be interested in this.
It's really important information, and you know we have. So I'm almost 60, so all my friends, it's for most of them it's their parents. So sometimes older people watch. You know, sometimes people watch who are who are facing these issues themselves, but often it's their children who are my age, you know, like between 45 and 65, whose parents are starting to undergo these challenges, that they're the ones that contact us first because they're the ones who are starting to deal with these issues. And so, you know, a lot of times we start talking with the children and then we bring the parents in if they, if the parents are on board. So we would be happy. I'm sure that David would be happy to present again. Jordan, what's the?
No, we would love to have another presentation. Yeah. We like to hear from the members to see what you guys would want more.
Right. Is this part of 1199?
It's part of the city fund, which goes to city hospital workers. But for these presentations, we did open it up for everyone.
And there's only 26 participants.
There were more signed up, but you guys are the ones that did come. Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will want.
I think I saw one of the questions here was, can we get the slides for the, and yes, I'm happy to provide them. And I think, Jordan, you were going to send everybody a copy of the.
Yeah, I did email it to everyone around 6 o'clock. I emailed it to everyone, but if you guys still didn't get it, just email me at cityfund-eldercare and I'll send it again.
Can we have another lecture like this, Jordan?
Yes, I'll talk to necessary people to have another Medicare and Medicaid.
Thank you.
Also, again, I think, you find a lot of information on our website, and we've one area of our website is called Your Situation. And, we've taken a lot of common situations like, I'm single, I need home care. I'm single, I need nursing home care. I'm married, my husband needs care. So for each of those different situations, we've put a description of the strategies that would be worth looking at in order to deal with that situation. Anyway, again, for those of you who are looking for more, I really, we've had a lot of compliments on our website. I think you would find it useful. And again, I'm happy to give another presentation here if it's desired. I enjoy doing this, and if it's useful to you, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any more questions this evening?
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
that we probably want to let everybody go because it's 7:25 and I'm probably, some of them are hungry.
Thank you so much.
Jordan, how do I contact you?
City Fund Eldercare at 1199funds.org. I'll type it in the chat for you guys.
Can they
Thank you.
repeat the website, please?
You said the website?
To repeat the website, his
Here,
website.
I'm typing it in the chat also.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to,
And we have some videos on the website as well, so you can look at the videos as well.
Okay.
here, I'm putting up, I'm sharing my screen there, and you'll see all of our contact information
Thank you.
for the website, and my email, and if you want to call us. Well, you're all going to get the PDF from
Jordan?
Jordan.
Gordon, and you'll have this slide with our